everyone, Declan Cross here, number 38, fullback for your Toronto Argonauts and Huddle Up player ambassador. Although, today I add to my title as your host for the Women in Football panel discussion. I get to ask the questions for a change, and I am excited about it. So first and foremost, I hope everyone's families have been staying safe during these difficult times, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all when we're back on the field. Today, I'm honored to be speaking to some very inspiring, barrier-breaking women in football. And on behalf of the Toronto Argonauts community and sport development team, I'd like to thank you, the viewer, for taking the time to listen to this discussion. We hope that it educates, challenges, and inspires you. So today's discussion will be a roundtable question and answer format. You will be getting to know these women, the journeys that led them into football on and off the field, the barriers they've had to overcome, and the opportunities they're most excited for. All right, let's get this thing started. I'd like to introduce you to the 5 panelists that will be joining me today. First up is the 2017 Canadian National Women's Football Team MVP, previous wide receiver for the Montreal Blitz, and now the manager of football and officiating with the CFL, which I would like to add, she made history as the first full-team female operations hire, Laurence Pontbriand. Laurence, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to just talk about football with these women on the panel.
Awesome. Our second panelist coincidentally also played for the Montreal Blitz in the wide receiver position, has officiated CJEP games, the 2018 East-West Bowl, and the Women's Tackle World Championship in 2017. This panelist is in her 9th season of officiating and one of the first females to officiate a CFL game alongside our third panelist, who I'll introduce shortly. Off the field, she has her PhD in atmospheric science and meteorology, introducing Georgina Paull.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here as well, just to talk football and talk football.
Heck yeah, let's talk some football. Our third panelist is in her 19th season of officiating, joining Georgina to make history as the first woman to officiate a CFL game. She has officiated CJFL and U Sports games for Canada West, and off the field, serves as an athletic director and physical education teacher in Langdon, Alberta, introducing Emily Clarke. Hi, Emily. How you doing?
Hi, Declan. I'm good. I'm really excited to be here, just like Laurence and Georgina. It's a cool opportunity to get to talk football when we haven't talked football so much lately. So, yeah, I'm excited to get the discussion going.
Our fourth panelist is another trailblazer in football and academia. She has not only led the creation of the Ontario Women's Intercollegiate Football Association, but currently serves as the commissioner. Off the field, she sits on Football Canada's Diversity Task Force and Football Executive Committee for the Black Canadian Coaches Association while working towards her PhD in neuroscience. Introducing someone smarter than me, Olivia Ghosh-Swaby.
Goodness, love that. I feel very amped to be here. Definitely among some very intelligent women as well. Georgina also has a PhD over there, so that's awesome to hear. Super excited to talk football. It's nice to have a group of women in the room ready to really chat it up. So look forward to it.
Awesome. And our final panelist, I have had the privilege of working with the past 4 years. She is in her 4th season with the Toronto Argonauts in community and player relations. As an undergraduate, she studied kinesiology and psychology and obtained her postgraduate degree in sport and event marketing. She plans and executes all of our Argos community initiatives, coordinates appearances, and helps to support our player causes, introducing my teammate and friend, Julia DiNardo. Julia, what's up?
Thanks, Dak. Like everyone said, I'm so excited to be alongside some amazing women, and I'm just super pumped for you to be asking me the questions for once.
Yes, let's do it. So let's get right into it. Laurence, we're going to start with you. A 2-part question off the jump. You've made history by being the first full-team female operations hire in the CFL. Being the first to do anything comes with its challenges as you navigate the unknown. Was there anyone that you looked up to as a role model when entering the role? And now, who are you hoping you've paved the path for, Laurence?
Well, there's one person that comes to mind when I get that question asked, and it's Sam Rappaport, who's the Senior Director of Football Development at the NFL. I met her in a flag football tournament in 2011, and we kind of just chatted and connected because we were both so passionate about football. She also played for the Montreal Blitz as a quarterback, so there was a connection there as well. And I just followed her career, and I was just impressed that a woman could work at the NFL. I thought that was just so cool. And now I just look up to her work, and I think it's just absolutely amazing what she's accomplished so far. She's the one who created the NFL Women's Career in Football Forum, and I attended that forum in 2018, and that basically how I got where I am today. So I definitely look up to her. And I mean, by doing those kind of panels, the only thing I want is to reach out to one girl that is looking and just letting her know that, hey, you can work in football. If you're passionate about something, there's nothing that can stop you. Anything is possible.
That's awesome. So someone passionate about football made a connection with you, and you're looking to reflect that back and make connections with others who share that passion. Beautiful. Moving on to a question for two people you work very closely with in your new role, Laurence, Georgina and Emily. First off, May 31st, 2019. What a day for the history books, being the first women to officiate a CFL game. You also didn't have any female role models to look up to in that space. So what made you want to pursue this as a career? And we'll start with you, Georgina.
So as I think you guys mentioned, I played tackle football for a while. And I guess when I got to the end of my career, I didn't just want to stop. I clearly love the sport a lot. So officiating just seemed like a logical next step. I tried a few games. I went to a clinic, and I learned a lot, and I learned more about the rule book. And clearly, you know, I have a PhD. I'm a little bit of a nerd, so reading is, you know, up my wheelhouse as well. And I just really started to like it, and I was reasonably good at it. So I just started getting better and better games, and it fit. I get to be on the sideline of a good football game. Who wouldn't want to be there?
Doing what you love, loving what you do. That's the way. Emily, would love to hear your take on this as well. What made you personally want to pursue officiating in a male-dominated sport?
I think it's pretty similar to what Georgina said. And to be honest, like at first, I didn't really see myself as pursuing officiating. It was just another extension of the game that I really, really enjoyed. I played as a kid growing up, playing tackle with the boys and flag football on some girls' teams at school. And just like I said, great way to stay involved. And again, very similar to Georgina, the more that you're involved with officiating, you learn so much more about the game and all the intricacies of it. And it's cool to just consider to be part of a team, like the third team out there on the field. We really are the third team. So you still have that great camaraderie with all of the officials that you work with on a regular basis on the field and anyone within your organization. And as I got to doing higher levels, it just got more and more exciting as to how fast the pace of the game was. And again, all the little nuances of the game that you see at those elite levels, and you get a taste of that and you just want more of it. So that's really what's pushing me to continue pursuing it at this point.
Awesome. The more you experience, the more you want more of that, staying on the path for football. That's awesome. Olivia, you're another trailblazer. You led the creation and now are the commissioner of the Ontario Women's Intercollegiate Football Association. Can you talk a little about why you started the league and any barriers you may have faced along the way?
Oh, where do I start? So this one always gets me heated because there's a number of barriers when you're trying to start out with any sport, especially for women in sport. And we saw this at least at the university level with hockey way back in the early 2000s. So I've been fortunate enough to come from a region in Mississauga, Ontario, where we had the opportunity to play flag football throughout high school. And I even got introduced to the game while I was in middle school. Yet after I left high school, I was a multi-sport athlete. So I played volleyball and track. I thought volleyball was the way to go when I went to university, and I came to Western University to try to play. But didn't end up finding my footing there. And I was like, hey, flag football has just been a big part of me for all those years. Why don't I have that same opportunity to play while I'm in university? And across Ontario, it was something that's been expressed from many women, hence why the foundation or the founding happened, mainly because it was a group of us. So this wasn't just me alone, it was a whole group of us. And so we, fortunate enough, there was a bit of footing with what we know as powder puff football. We've completely changed that to women's football. That has like exploded and has formed our league up to this day. Now, barriers are still there. I think it's a mission of like maybe 5 years from now, those will be gone. But women's football, and especially with the help of the states recognizing flag more there, we're seeing the game way more attractive for athletes who have finished in their sport throughout high school or even early in university and trying to transition somewhere else. So being able to play a sport again with a team is huge for many women, and especially in academia where you just need a space to let loose, to get back on the field, be competitive. That's the space to do it, and flag is so amazing for that. And so once we get some more athletic directors on board, more coaches in to get us growing, more referees and officials like we have here on the screen helping support our game, we're going to see the game of flag football grow. We're already up to 400 athletes and 70 student coaches. So it's just a matter of making sure that there's a lot more buy-in and more recognition that this is a sport for women.
Okay, that's a lot to be proud of. Most people probably would have given up if faced with the amount of hardship that you had to overcome there and the many obstacles that you spoke about. Julia, Olivia just spoke about obstacles. Growing up, did you ever see yourself working in football? And if not, what brought you here and what obstacles have you had to face along the way?
So for a simple answer, no, I never saw myself working in football growing up. And it's simply because I never saw any women in positions that I'm in or any women playing, frankly. Thankfully now I'm sitting next to a bunch of women in this panel that are the first at things. And I just am so hopeful that there's girls that are going to be watching this and be like, wow, I can actually, if I can see it, I can be it. And I can be in a position like that. So I'm happy things have changed. But what brought me here is another simple answer is community. I grew up watching players like Michael Pinball Clemens, who broke barriers on the field with his height, and then now is breaking barriers in philanthropy and has his own foundation and is doing amazing things off the field. And then my first season with the Argos was unbelievable. I saw how these athletes are like nobody else. Like they want to give back. They want to go out there and make a difference. They truly care about the things that they're doing. For example, like look at Declan. He's sitting on this panel as our host. Like these are just such amazing and special people. And I knew that I wanted to work with these humans to make a difference. So that's kind of what brought me to the sport. In terms of obstacles, being a woman in a male-dominated sport is hard. You have a lot of obvious barriers. Post-game, if I need to go in and grab a player, force a community initiative, I can't. They're getting changed. So there's the obvious barriers in that sense. I have to ask a male colleague to go in and grab them for you, which is kind of a little bit off-putting, and it kind of makes you question yourself a little bit. But anytime I've gone to an appearance or managing event, I've also been assumed either a cheerleader or, oh, that's nice, the player's girlfriend came with them to the appearance. That's so kind of you. Even though I'm carrying a clipboard and I look as official as I can be. So there's always those external perceptions of what I do that I'm constantly battling with. Or if I have, like Declan and I are good friends, I have to always be conscious of how people perceive our relationship or our friendship. As a male, you don't have to think about those things. So those are the obvious kind of external barriers, but internally within yourself, sitting on a ton of meetings and say walking into a locker room where it's all men and I'm the only woman there, you kind of struggle with imposter syndrome. Like, should I really be here? I'm the only female here. So it kind of makes you question yourself in that sense. Kind of finding the confidence. Anyone that knows me knows I have no problem voicing my own opinions, but sometimes it gets to you a little bit when some people may not think you know the game that well or you know the players that well. Thankfully, I'm blessed and I have an amazing team. It's why I've been here for 4 seasons. My players are amazing. my coaches, my staff, my superiors. I got a million texts on International Women's Day from my team and my players just saying, thank you for everything that you're doing. I just feel so respected. But I think there's a lot of work to be done in football. So I'm just excited to see what's going to happen. We can change the game.
Awesome. So you're an example. All five of you are examples of being the first in, or one of the first in, and entering the game. So if we can shift gears to how we can grow that game, Laurence, as mentioned earlier, growing the game has always been one of your priorities. What is your strategy on getting more girls and women into officiating and football as a whole?
I think targeting the grassroots level is the way to do it. We at the CFL, we have partnered with PHE Canada, which is Physical and Health Canada. They are creating resources for physical education teachers, free resources to provide to physical education teachers that wouldn't know how to teach a certain sport. So we've partnered with them, created great resources. And I think being in school is just the best way, because you can target any type of community across Canada. So I think for us, that's huge. And for officiating, we've been working with the local official association to try to create diversity programs within their own organizations.
Okay, so a lot of learning and initiatives to improve understanding. We can accomplish everything through that. This gives me hope for women in sport, and I know this is just the beginning of more great things to come. Georgina, did you ever feel like you had to overcome any barriers to make it as a CFL official based on your gender?
Definitely. I think a lot of the stuff actually that Julia just said really hit home. Just the idea of walking into a locker room and being the only woman there. Or in a lot of cases, I would walk to a field, or I'd be walking with the male refs to our locker room, and someone would come tap me on the shoulder and say, actually, the therapists are that way. And I would just say, okay, and then just continue walking. Just pretty much ignore what they're, saying. Just things like that to get people used to the fact that you're going to see more women on the field. So don't just assume that, I think like Julia said, they're a cheerleader or they're a girlfriend or they're a therapist. Just little comments here and there that are just continually being made, assuming that we can't possibly be a ref because we're a female. Stuff like that, I guess, if you consider that a barrier, which I guess I kind of would. Other than that, it's really just, I think we start by I mean, I guess just like females in general, we kind of start a level lower. I think they just assume that we, couldn't possibly know the game because we're a female. So therefore, we don't know the rules. We don't know where we should be moving on the field. We don't know what we should be looking at. And they tend to pick on you a little bit more until you just prove that you know what you're doing. And then the second you prove that you know what you're doing, they're good with you. And that's probably true for a lot of rookies. It's just the feeling that I got. I felt like I had to do it a lot more maybe than other rookies out there. Just every time a new coach hadn't seen me, it was same thing over and over. Or a few times I got called the other girl in our association because there's two women and they just assumed you were the same person. Just things like that, right? Like you wouldn't call a man the same man as the other man because there's hundreds of them. But for some reason for women, it's hard to, distinguish two different women. But stuff like that, I guess. But you get over it. You just keep going and you keep doing well and you just prove to them that they're wrong and perhaps how to, not make those assumptions.
Right. So overcoming those distractions and remaining focused and ignoring biases sort of thing, right? Emily, in recent news, we have seen some football history being made with Sarah Thomas. She's the first woman to officiate a Super Bowl, and Maya Chaka, the first Black woman to be named an NFL official. Does that give you hope for the future of this profession for females?
Yeah, absolutely. As Julia mentioned earlier, if you can see it, you can be it. And as again we've previously discussed, for a lot of us coming through, we didn't have those female role models that were there. And again, to the kind of the question you asked me before, like pursuing it as a career. I didn't really even see it as being possible to pursue officiating at the highest level as a career until I did see Sarah Thomas break into the NFL in her preseason and then progress to being a full-time official. And so the fact that has officiated at the absolute highest level of the game, it shows women that, there is a place for women in football, and it can be on the field, and it can be, again, on the world's biggest stage for everybody to see. So the more that people see that, the more people or the more women you're going to have that join officiating just to try it out and to see how it goes, because they see that it's something that they can do. And I think for women that are already officiating, it's going to encourage them or inspire them to pursue officiating at a higher level. If they just officiate at the grassroots level right now, they're going to see that it's possible for them to move up and officiate at the high school level, or to officiate in the CJFL or at the youth sport level moving forward. And I've seen the growth already within the last 4 or 5 years that I've been officiating. So I'd say in my first 12 or 13 years officiating, I think I only ever worked with one other female one other time in all of those years. And now it's a pretty regular occurrence for me to be either on the field right with another woman directly on the crew, or have one other woman or two other women that are on the support crew working the sticks or working the clock, or being the penalty recorder. So it's very, very common now to see multiple women on a crew. And you're seeing it on social media as well. I know the Canadian Football Officials Association this week, I think they did an outstanding job on International Women's Day, highlighting a number of female officials across the country that officiate at all levels, at the grassroots level and at the higher levels where Georgina and I are. So the progress is already starting, and it's just going to continue to grow. So I think the sky is kind of the limit right now, as we've been shown with Sarah Thomas right at that highest level that everybody wants to achieve in officiating.
Right on. So we're growing the game through more examples of successful women in the game, leading to more examples in the future. On that topic of growing the game and on new opportunities with football, let's touch on flag. I know from taking part in our Argos Cup flag tournament in the past, I was so impressed with how many girls were out there and not just going through the motions, but they were some of the best players on their team. Olivia, do you see flag football as a good opportunity to get more young girls at the grassroots level into the sport of football?
I mean, heck yeah, because that's where I started. And I wouldn't have had the passion that I have for the game now if I didn't actually get that chance to play. So what's really important is that with flag, you can come from any sport background. You can be fast, you can have hands, you can have height, you can be smaller, you can be any size and be in the game. And that's so important for keeping young girls in the game, because we already know that about 20% drop out of sport when they leave even elementary and or even leave high school. So more sporting opportunities is essential. And then flag is just a great way to not only just build athleticism, but even that hand-eye coordination, that intelligence, because football is such a strategic game. You get all these levels that can just translate into anything that a young girl could do in the future, whether it be in the game or in a future career.
So flag sounds like a good answer for developing those basic skills and having an avenue for anyone, no matter the size or ability, to come in and start learning the game. That's great insight from the grassroots development standpoint. I'd now like to pose a question to Julia on the off-the-field perspective through your community programming and initiatives. How have you been able to engage more females in the sport of football?
We actually run our, like Declan mentioned, our Argos Cup, and it's a co-ed flag tournament. And seeing, like you said, seeing the girls out there was unbelievable. Most of the teams were mainly female, and almost always the quarterback was the female. So we put on tournaments like that just so we can see more females getting engaged with our sport and amplifying that message using our players and our platforms. And then just having other things like our coaches open house, which pre-pandemic, we would have coaches come down to the field and just learn from our coaches, sit in on practice, sit in with our players in team meetings. And then we had a virtual one this year, and Olivia actually asked some questions that we had posed to Coach Dinwiddie and Coach Glenn. But just integrating females in every aspect that we can in our programming. There's obviously more to do, and which is why we're putting on a panel like this. We need to do more. We're excited to do more, and we want to kind of open up football to not just females, but a diverse group of people that may not necessarily be integrated into it right now. We want to make sure that we're not just focusing in on males and football development, but kind of making it seem like, yes, there are avenues for females if, say, they don't want to play tackle. There is flag. But I think that it's so important just to have visibility and have our players out there, because you never know who they might motivate, even off the field. With our community programming through Huddle Up, we do 40 assemblies a year with our players, and Declan going into a classroom in front of a bunch of females, they're now a fan of the sport, and they might now get interested in the sport. So it doesn't just only apply to on field. We just need to make a good example of connecting our community and getting more girls engaged that way.
Yeah, more initiatives sounds good to me. I'm always happy to be involved in those initiatives, and it's pretty cool. I'm thankful to play for a team that thrives in that community space, right? We've got the Toronto Argos putting on events with MLSE, and it's pretty amazing to even just have access to that and have more initiatives coming out of that. So now I'd like to pose a question to the entire panel, kind of a fun question. If you could leave your younger self with one piece of advice, what would it be? Laurence, we'll start with you.
For me, I guess it would be two things. The first one would be, it's not because the boys can aspire to play football and be paid that you can't think or imagine or dream to have a job in football. I remember thinking to myself that it was so unfair that the boys could eventually be paid and playing football, and that for me was never an option. So definitely that. And the other thing would be, don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone. Try, if it's possible, to every day step out of your comfort zone. Go talk to people that you would not regularly talk to, and make those connections, because those connections are the ones that are maybe one day going to take you somewhere. Making connections.
Beautiful. Okay, Georgina, on to you. What would you say to your younger self?
So it's very similar to Laurence. It would definitely be to not be afraid to try something new. I was sort of a little afraid to go to my first football practice, so I actually skipped the first one because I was too nervous. And if I had never gone, then all of the rest of my life would not have happened like this, which is crazy.
We'll ask Emily, what sort of advice would you give?
There's a common theme so far. Mine would be to say yes to opportunity. Any opportunity that's presented to you, take it. If someone's giving you the opportunity, it means that they see something in you that you may not see or may not believe that you're ready for, but they see it, and they're going to give you what you need to be successful and or to improve. So say yes to that opportunity, and like Georgina just said, if you don't, then you may just sit there wondering, what if? And even if it turns out badly, you're going to learn something from it. So you're always going to gain something valuable in terms of knowledge or experience. So say yes to any opportunity that comes up.
Looking for opportunities and then attacking them. Olivia, what would you say to yourself?
Yeah, this is a two-part question for me. One is be vocal. So don't be afraid to be that voice, because if no one's doing it for you, you got to do it for yourself. And I think that's so important when it comes to being in a space, which is my next point, where you may not be welcomed or you may not envision yourself. So the second part to that is creating that space. It's okay if you're going to have to create it for yourself, but once you create it for yourself, you're opening the doors for so many others to be in that space with you. And I think that's what a lot of the panelists have done here on the screen today. So I think those two are super important, hence why we see the growth and formation of a league, for example, for women in university here in Ontario.
Sometimes taking advantage of opportunities involves creating them, like all five of you have done. Julia, finally here, what sort of advice would you give your younger self?
I tell myself to continue to be naive. I know growing up, my parents were great. I'm so thankful for them now, but they let me wear my hockey jersey in my school pictures while other parents are making their daughters wear dresses. My brother played hockey, so I wanted to play in boys hockey. I never thought there was anything wrong with that. I never thought that I didn't belong. So I'd love to hold on to that naiveness, and I would tell myself that. And I just think that if you're constantly worrying about how other people perceive you or whether you belong there or what people think, you're wasting time on achieving your goal. You could be using that time to get where you want to be. So just stay naive. Don't let what other people think affect you at all.
Those are all amazing answers. So we heard about, most of the talk was about opportunities, taking advantage of opportunities, creating opportunities, not being afraid to go after things that you want, believing in yourself. Those are all amazing answers. I want to give a big thank you to all of our panelists. Your words, your experiences, your perspectives, and the barriers that all of you have broken have only paved the way for others, and you've paved the way to open new opportunities for others. So if you can see it, you can be it. My hopes are that football continues to bring more insightful, intelligent, and groundbreaking women to the table, like our panelists that have joined me today, because our sport's better for it. Thank you for all you're doing and all that all of you continue to do for the sport on and off the field. And on behalf of the Toronto Argonauts, I also want to thank the viewers. We hope you leave this discussion feeling educated, feeling inspired, feeling challenged, and feeling capable of taking on challenge. So goodbye, everybody. Hope to see you soon.